Hi everyone, it's Phil here from Ashland Leather, and today I have a bunch of great new stuff that I'm putting up on the website, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about my favorite shell color. So this is Amaretto Shell Cordovan. If you've been watching the videos for a while here, you may have heard me talk about this color way too often, just talking about how much I love it. It's a really nice, vibrant, orangey tan shade. Check out the luster on this particular piece. And when you compare this to something like natural shell cordovan, so on the right, this little center section here, that's the natural shell. You can see the natural shell is a little bit more neutral in color, where the amaretto has a little bit more of this nice orangey tan and definitely much more vibrance to it. The other really interesting thing about amaretto shell is this color shift that we talk about a lot. So at this angle, you can see it's a little bit darker, slightly more red maybe, a little bit of a darker burnt orange color. And then as I spin it around, it becomes a little bit more yellow at this angle, which I really, really like. So the first item we're going to talk about is this Amaretto Shell Cordovan Gus Card Case. And the Gus Card Case is a relatively new wallet style that we put out a couple months ago. It's got two larger expandable card slots in the center here. We designed this with business cards in mind, so it's a little bit wider than most of our other card holders. What I found to be most useful for this guy, carrying as a wallet as opposed to a business card holder, is to put my most used cards in the front section here, and then folded cash in the back section here. So as I mentioned, this one is Amaretto Shell Cordovan on the exterior with this flap closure, and you'll notice that all the Gus card cases we make are made out of veg tan leather, and that's because we need this flap to be molded closed. All veg tan leathers will hold their shape once they start to be worn and used. With a little bit of heat and pressure, this flap will just stay closed naturally. And we find this flap closure to be the simplest and easiest to use solution for this card holder. As opposed to putting a band around it, we found it a little too cumbersome to slide the flap into that band. Up next is another variation on the Amaretto Shell Cordovan. This is reverse Amaretto Shell Cordovan. And if I'm very honest with you, the reverse amaretto is pretty similar to reverse natural shell cordovan, where it has this really nice neutral and lighter veg tan color. We also cut these backwards to show off the Horween ink stamp, which we try to cut into all of these. And on the inside of it, you have a reverse card holder on the front, which is really great as a look for the exterior. Keeps a very clean look. But then you also get to see the Amaretto Shell Cordovan on the inside. Here's another great variation on the Amaretto Shell Cordovan, but this is actually a prototype card holder that I'm really excited about. I don't know how this came about, but it's sort of a similar concept to the Gus. However, this one does not have expandable card holders on the interior. This is more like our Bugs Moran, but with a flap closure. And we're talking about Amaretto Shell Cordovan. This is a variation on the Amaretto shell that we call dip-dyed Amaretto. And this is some leather trials that Horween has been doing on their shell cordovan. They've been trying different experiments. This is one of them. Dip-dyed Amaretto is a little bit darker and a little bit more of a bold orange color as opposed to the Amaretto, which is a little bit more tan and slightly more brown. This is actually the reverse side of that dip-dyed Amaretto. So if we look at the other side on the interior of this prototype, you can see the intended shell side of the dip-dyed Amaretto. It's a little bit more of a full color as opposed to the non-dip-dyed Amaretto that we just looked at. This one is also very interesting because we were able to cut a Horween measuring machine stamp into this bottom card holder here. And I do have a couple more Gus card cases that we're going to be offering today. This is another reverse piece, but this is reverse black shell cordovan. We do get a bit of confusion from people with the reverse black appearing green. And that's because the black shell cordovan that you see on the interior here, this is the intended side of the shell, or on the reverse side, this is actually unintended. The tannery wasn't expecting us to make it in this orientation. And the reason that the color is black is because the black dyes that they use for the shell side actually have a little bit of green in that black. And then when they dip the leather into a barrel of water, that greenish black dye migrates off into the barrel and it stains the unintended reverse side. And I really like the random dye marks on the reverse shell cordovan that you can see on a little bit in the bottom here. It's a little bit of these darker green spots, but we also really love showcasing the Horween shell cordovan stamp. And on the interior, we also have reverse black shell cordovan on this bottom piece. You can see this is a little bit more of that color range, where it's a little bit lighter and more of a tan green as opposed to the darker forest green on the exterior. One more Gus card case to look at. This is reverse color 8 shell cordovan. This is a really interesting dye marks. Speaking about dye marks that we absolutely love showing off. The other great thing about reverse shell is you can see it starts off with a nice mild sheen, It's not bright and shiny like a normal piece of shell Cordovan, like you can see on the inside here. Very much a mirror-like shine on the shell side. The reverse side starts off a little bit more of this matte finish. But as you wear this, the luster definitely develops. So if you're interested in patina, I really like reverse shell Cordovan. Let's look at the interior of this one. We have reverse color 8 on the front card holder, as well as color 8 shell Cordovan for the interior. I'm also putting up a couple really interesting Capone money clips. The Capone is one of our best-selling wallets right now. And we had a piece of natural chrome excel with some epic texture in it. And that's what this is here. Natural chrome excel with the epic grain character that we call it. These sort of crease marks that appear. And this texture on the outside, you can actually feel this a little bit. That's a natural texture from the animal. This may have been cut from sort of the shoulder area of the hide that tends to have a little bit more of this figuring. And let's take a look at the interior where we continue that epic natural chrome excel texture on the left card holder as well as the right card holder. And then we have a gold spring bar money clip in the center. One more Capone money clip to look at, and this is that natural shell Cordovan this time that we were looking at earlier, comparing it to the Amaretto. Much lighter, a little bit more of a neutral color for the natural shell, but it does have a bit of liveliness to it. Very mild orange to it, I'd say. And it's a really nice shade for patina. And speaking of patina, we were talking about reverse shell. So this one here is reverse on the card holders for the exterior, as well as reverse for the card holders on the interior. This is a wallet that's going to develop an incredible patina. I expect this to get darker, a little bit more golden brown, just with normal use, as well as that luster starting to develop in layers. So you'll see the reverse shell become much more bright and shiny, similar to how the shell looks on this little spine piece here, but also will develop in layers of luster. So you'll see a surface luster, as well as a luster that sort of comes from inside of the leather that I find to be really interesting. This one also has a gold spring bar money clip. I wanted to show you a color number 8 Dublin Tony the Ant wallet here. And this one is a really interesting leather. And I think this particular color is something that may have to be experienced in person. So as I'm looking at my viewfinder here, this looks really, really dark, almost black. But the color 8 Dublin is finished with a hard wax layer. And that wax layer sort of conceals the true color of the color 8 Dublin. It gives it actually a depth of color. So when you apply waxes to any of the grains of any leather, it'll start to look a little bit more like that wax color. And it tends to make the color a little bit darker. The Dublin leathers in general have a really exceptional burst effect, which you can see here. So the undertones of color 8, a little bit more of this cherry red, and we're trying to match the color 8 shell Cordovan color onto the Dublin leather. Big difference here is Dublin has much more grain character than shell Cordovan. Because it is grain, this is a full grain veg tan leather, where the shell Cordovan is just very, very flat and smooth and even. Dublin tends to have a lot more natural character. I wanted to show this one in the video because we do have a couple of these available, and I think they're really, really nice. I have a couple other private stock wallets that I'm really excited to show you. This first one here is the Epic Splatter on reverse color 8. I was talking about how we love showing off the random dye marks, and every now and then we get some shells with really dramatic dye splattering. And this one's great because it has sort of different colors of dye splatter. You see this little lighter sort of cherry color as well as those darker browns. And combining those together, I think this is really, really interesting. And again, this is not intended. This is sort of Jackson Pollocked by the tannery. They weren't intending for you to see this side at all. So every now and then when we see some splatter that we find very compelling, we love to turn it into private stock wallets. So we have this Fat Herbie here, epic dye splatter of reverse color 8. We've also continued that onto the inside. And this is a really great looking Fat Herbie. I love the random dye marks on the inside and out, but we've also upgraded it even further with some hand stained edges. So we tried to match the same exact color that Horween uses for the color 8 shell to make some edge stains. And that's what you see on the edges of this Fat Herbie here. The color 8 stain to match the same color 8 on the outside of the wallet. And I think that really ties everything together on the special private stock Fat Herbie. Here's another private stock wallet, color 8 on the shell side this time. And this is the little brother to the Fat Herbie. This is a wallet we call Tony the Ant. It's slightly smaller than the Fat Herbie, which is actually how it came about. People liked the aesthetic of the Fat Herbie here with this exterior bill slot and the thumb notch on the outside of the wallet. They wanted it slimmed down just a little bit, so that's how Tony the Ant came about. We have a bill slot on the exterior, and the card layout on the inside is a little bit different. This is what makes it private stock as well. We have reverse colorate on the interior of this Tony the Ant. And I really like reverse card holders for the interiors of wallets, because as they rub together, it tends to be a little bit easier to fill in and polish in the reverse sides of shell. This one's a little bit different also because we have their waxed and burnished edge, which gives it a good sort of framed out contrast to the colorate on the outside. And the last wallet to show you, this one is extra special, although there's one little blem on it. We were talking about Amaretto shell in the beginning of the video. This is actually raw Amaretto shell Cordovan. So this is the same color stains that were used on this wallet in my left hand, but this is before the leather has been polished with Venetian shoe cream and then glazed on the glazing jack. So you can see the color is a little bit less orange, and that's actually something I've noticed with shoe polishes in general. There's something about it when you put that wax on top of the leather, it tends to pull out a little bit of orangey color to it, sometimes a little bit more red. So this raw Amaretto does not have any of that. So it's a little bit more of a true sort of goldeny yellow color, which I really like. And because it's raw and not polished, definitely starts off a little bit more of a matte luster. So this will give you a lot of room to develop a great patina. This one is an irregular, and it's a very, very small little spot here. If you want to see this on the product page, I did a close-up of this little mark right here. That's why this one is going to be irregulared. On the inside, we've got something really special. Western Garnet Shell Cordovan. And this is a great color. You might even be able to see there, just as I turn it slightly, how much that color changes. It's almost like a medium brown with a little bits of red at this angle, but as I spin it, much more of those red tones come out. And check that out there. Garnet Shell Cordovan is the most red color that Horween makes, but it still reads as brown in a lot of contexts, and I really like it. In addition to that, I also really like the Western texture. There's something about this texture that makes the colors look new to me. I mean, I've seen a lot of shell over the years, but every time I see a texture on it, it's like I'm seeing the same color, but just in a different context, and I really like it. So we got this Johnny the Fox going up on the website right now, along with all these other items. And if you had any questions about my favorite shell Cordovan color here, the Amaretto, definitely let me know. And even better yet, let me know what your favorite shell color is. I'll tell you from our metrics, our most popular color that we sell is actually natural shell Cordovan. But I think in the world, color number 8 shell is actually the most popular. This classic Cordovan color, dark brown burgundy shade. And I think it's the most popular for a good reason. It's just a really beautiful color. You can't really go wrong with all of the shell colors. So let me know what's your favorite. And until next time, hope you have a good one.